Hi everyone, my name is Zain. I am representing my company Paris Metal Recycle in this TradeFox Virtual Networking Conference Fall Edition 2021. This is second time we are participating in TradeFox conference. I would like to personally thank Mr. Chris for giving us this opportunity again to discuss the topic of recycling industry. In this era of COVID-19 pandemic, it has been very difficult for the buyers and suppliers globally to meet and interact about and discuss about the topics for the recycling industry. This has been a great opportunity provided by the Trade Fox. We thank them very much. Trade Fox has been doing a great work in terms of bringing the suppliers and buyers near to each other and helping them in ease of doing business. Let's start off our topic today is steel industry of Pakistan, a potential emerging market for the global recycling industry. A brief introduction of myself, Zain Ahmed. I'm an experienced business professional with 12 years of experience in supply chain, business development, and marketing in steel industry of Pakistan. Apart from it, I have worked as supply chain consultant in different steel projects in long as well as flat steel in Pakistan. I'm being a member of a renowned steel business family who has been pioneers in arc steel melting in Pakistan and were founders of different business associations in Pakistan. Today, our discussion parameters will revolve about the recycling industry. First, we will discuss about the role of recycling in steel industry, brief history of steel industry of Pakistan, present prospects of steel industry of Pakistan, prospects for recycling industry in 2021, growth modernization of steel industry in Pakistan, local steel recycling industry of Pakistan. Then we'll discuss about issues in local recycling industry in Pakistan, trends in local recycling industry in Pakistan, opportunities in local recycling industry in Pakistan, and then the last we will focus about our topic, that is opportunity for the global recycling industry in Pakistan. Whole of our discussion would come towards the recommendation and conclusions for the opportunity what Pakistan has for the global recycling industry in Pakistan. First, we will discuss about the role of recycling in steel industry. Recycling has been like a backbone for the steel industry, as it is playing a very fundamental role in the steel industry. As we see in this chart, China ranks number one in the global crude steel production and did a 1,064 million metric ton of crude steel production in 2020. uh, Pakistan ranks 39th in the world in 2020 and produced 3.8 million metric ton. Total world production was 1,877 million metric ton, and China produced more than 50% of the crude steel production. As we see, approx 30% of the steel globally made is from recycled scrap, so we can easily say that more than 600 million metric ton of steel is recycled every year for use in steel industry. History of steel industry of Pakistan. Since the independence of the country, most of the steel was being imported in the country in finished form. The steel industry in Pakistan found its foundation in the 1960s when different steel mills in the country were established using used Russian technology. More than 90% of the recycled steel requirements for the local steel industry in Pakistan are met by importing from different global markets. The major global suppliers for Pakistan for the recycled scrap material is UAE, Europe, UK, America, and Australia. Basically, the steel industry of Pakistan is dependent upon the global scrap suppliers for their requirements. The local recycling industry is conventional and unable to meet the ever-increasing demand of the country, and most of the work is still done manually through labor The role of recycling industry, the local recycling industry is very thin, and the local recycling industry does not have the proper capability to support the steel industry of Pakistan on its own. So the steel industry of Pakistan has to be dependent upon the global scrap supplies. Present prospects of the steel industry of Pakistan. Pakistan is one of the few countries globally that have increased their steel production even during the COVID-19 pandemic. Steel production in Pakistan was recorded around 4.77 million metric ton, which shows an increase of approximately more than 20% from the previous year. And when we say that the crude steel production has increased, resultantly the steel scrap import has also increased in the current year. Government policy for housing sector, being a partner in CPAC projects, other development projects, has resulted in enormous increase in demand for quality steel bars, and that demand has still been increasing, and the demand increase can be felt throughout the steel industry of Pakistan. Increased production of steel has resulted in increase of demand for the recycled scrap steel in Pakistan from around the globe. Prospects for recycling industry in 2021. If we discuss about the prospects of the recycling industry, we have the supply side and then we have the demand side. On the supply side, we see there is a shortage of containers availability globally, and we see the increased container freights. On the demand side, we are observing that economies are now opening up after a severe COVID pandemic, and new projects are opening up that has resulted in an increase of demand for the recycled scrap materials. And for there we can see the uncertainty in the ferroalloys market and the scrap market. The prices are going up and down and up, and there is uncertainty in the scrap market due to the supply and demand side both. Modernization of the steel industry of Pakistan. Since the last decade, particularly the last 5 years, the steel industry has been advancing a revolutionary phase in Pakistan. Pakistan being a major partner in CPENC, resulting in development projects in the country, it is resulting in increase of demand for quality steel that has led to the modernization of steel industry in Pakistan. Further, the steel capacities in the Pakistan has been increasing in the last 1 decade. We have seen that the steel production, crude steel production, has increased in Pakistan in the last 1 decade by about 5 times. So the steel industry has to increase their production capacities, to increase their better qualities, to increase their profitability. There was a huge requirement for the modernization of the industry, and as we know that at the developing phase of any country, the steel consumption of any country increases, as it is the basis for the infrastructural development of any country. And Pakistan now currently being a developing country, its steel consumption has been increasing. As a result of the increased demand in production, the demand for the recycled scrap has been increasing in Pakistan. Modernization of steel industry. If we further discuss this topic, Pakistan industry of steel mainly depends upon the import of raw materials. The majority of the long products that are being locally produced uh, domestically uh, is done from imported raw materials and scrap from the global market, and the import has been evolving around 5 million metric ton of the recycled scrap material. Uh, the Pakistan industry, the long steel industry, has a capacity of around 5 million metric ton, and most of the capacity is being produced by using the imported scrap material. As per the international standard, every 5 metric ton of cement requires 1 metric ton of steel. Furthermore, the cement sector plans to increase capacity to 70 million metric ton in Pakistan, which will need domestic steel capacity in construction-grade products to rise by 4 million metric ton to keep up with the future demand. So Pakistan is going to emerge as a potential buyer of steel scrap from the global market in coming few years. The example of few plants that has been expanding and modernizing their industry is Agha Steel in Karachi, Sindh, Mughal Steel, Lahore, Punjab, Nabina Steel, Karachi, Sindh. Growth of steel industry of Pakistan. If we look about how the Pakistani industry has been growing in the last 1 decade, we can see that the per capita steel consumption of Pakistan was 43 kg, while the world average was 245 kg in 2020. So Pakistan's per capita steel consumption is still very low in comparison to the world average and to the region's average. With a population of around 220 million, a small increase in either the steel consumption by 10 kg or population will translate into increase in steel consumption by at least 2 million metric ton. So what we are seeing here, the per capita steel consumption of Pakistan is very low in comparison to the world average, and with a huge population, we are seeing in the coming few years, in 5 to 10 years, uh, either the steel consumption increases or the population increase. Both will result in an increase in steel consumption and production, and resultantly, this demand for the recycled scrap materials. Let's study about the import growth of steel raw material and semi-finished in Pakistan quantities. If we go in 2013, it was around Pakistan was importing around 2 million metric tons, and in 2017 it was importing around 5.2 million metric tons. So what we have seen in the 4 years that it has observed increase of about 2.5 times. Pakistan has a steel consumption of approximately 5 million metric ton annually, out of which 5 million metric ton local long steel is made locally from imported scrap. The remaining 4 million metric ton is flat steel that is being imported and finished from like HRC or CRC, etc. If sorry, if in the coming few years, like 5 to 7 years, if we see any plant coming in for the crude steel production of flat steel, like producing HRC locally, so we can see a further increase in 4 million metric ton of crude steel production increase in Pakistan, that eventually will translate into a significant increase in the recycled scrap material import in Pakistan. So all these indicators are indicating Pakistan as an emerging steel scrap market uh, as a customer in the coming years. Let's study about the local steel recycling industry of Pakistan, as it's very important. If we are studying the global steel recycling industry, we need to know how the local steel recycling industry in Pakistan is performing. The local steel market is primarily located in two locations in Pakistan. One is Shesha Market, Karachi, Sindh. Other is Mishra Market, Lahore, Punjab. Local recycling industry in Pakistan has been operating in a conventional way. Less is documented, and most of the market still uses manual labor for different recycling processes. Scrap is being collected, sorted in small cities and different engineering companies, and is then transferred to local recycling market in Lahore or Karachi for further manual processes, and then uh, sorted and then for deliveries to steel mills across Pakistan. So what we are observing here, currently in the local steel recycling industry, there are 4 to 5 stages involved from collection till the delivery to the steel mills. So it's a very hectic process and is a very time consuming and cost consuming process. Trends in local recycling industries, we will discuss what factors are impacting the prices of scrap in the local industry, recycling industry. First one is the dollar exchange rate. Whenever the dollar exchange rate changes its parity with the PKR rupees, if it goes up, the local scrap rates goes up. If it goes down, it goes down. If there's a fluctuation in international scrap rates, that puts pressure on the local buying. If we take an example, last week, 10 days back, when there was a pressure in the international market and prices were a bit downward, then we have seen in the local recycling industry there was a pressure by the local steel mills to buy more from the local industry rather than booking from the international market. That resulted in the prices for the local scrap to move up when the prices for the international market was going down. So here we can see there was a inverse proportion. There was an inverse relationship between the local and international market. But sometimes there's a direct relation between the local and international recycling industry, and sometimes there's an inverse relationship. Like say if the international market is going up, then the local recycling scrap would also be going up. Sometimes we have observed that the industry, local and global, move in the same direction. Sometimes they move in opposite direction. That depends upon the circumstances and there is a place where the opportunities lies for the local steel industry in Pakistan sometimes. Labor shortages during the harvesting season because the local recycling industry is labor intensive. Whenever there is a harvesting season, there is a shortage of labor, and the prices of the scrap goes up because the local industry is highly impacted by the labor issues in the local recycling industries. All process of sorting and recycling is still manual. Due to manual sorting and processing, there are a lot of quality issues. One lot may differ from the other due to manual sorting processes. Due to all the process is still manual, labor intensive. Uh, there is no quality consistency in the local recycling industry. One lot may differ from the other one. Opportunities in the local recycling industry. New recycling models should be introduced for erasing multiple stages. What we have been seeing here currently, there are 4 to 5 stages involved in the local recycling industry that can be easily dropped down to 2 or 3 stages to increase the quality and profitability, and hence will brought down the time involved in the supply chain process of the local recycling industry. Local recycling industry in Pakistan needs attention to modernize the sector by using shredding plants, further increasing the capacities of the bundling machine, and also to make up the local standards for different steel scrap. Because currently, what we are observing here, there are different names for the steel scrap being used, like chant, arda chant, kenchito, pure kenchito, nigger, but there's no written standard for each steel scrap type, and usually the steel scrap is observed or inspected visually without any written standards and is being procured by the mills accordingly on a visual basis, and inspection is done on visual basis rather than some standard what we have seen in the international market like shredded 211, 210. There are different standards written for this, but in the local recycling industry, there is no such standard, and it is usually depend on the visual inspection and uh, of the material rather than written standard. Proper scrap exchanges should be formulated for trading of scrap in the local recycling industry. Till now, there is no proper scrap exchange where you can buy or trade the scrap. What we have seen in Europe, UK, and America, that there are proper scrap exchanges where you trade scrap and prices are set. But in Pakistan, there is no proper scrap exchange at the moment. Opportunities for the global recycling industry in Pakistan. Today, our topic was revolving towards the point that there is a lot of opportunity for the global recycling industry in Pakistan. As we have observed in our previous slides, that the crude steel production in Pakistan has increased more than 5 times in the last 1 decade, from 0.8 million metric ton in 2010 to 4.7 million metric tons in 2021. That has is a 5-time increase, and the same is still increasing on accelerated percentage as Pakistan still is in a phase of development with the projects like CPENG and housing, and further with the very huge base of population and low per capita steel consumption. This demand is expected to grow, and Pakistan is going to emerge as a potential market for the global recycling industry in the years to come. And there's an immense potential in this industry. And what I see, global industry should more focus on Pakistan. They should try to capture this market and tap their revenues. Pakistan has attained an important position, as we have discussed earlier. The steel industry in Pakistan in the last 1 decades was one of the highest in the world in terms of percentage growth of crude steel production in last 1 decade. Recommendations for the recycling industry. Global recycling industry should make up local offices in country to tap the increasing demand of recycled scrap materials rather than using for sale of material. Till now, what we have seen that the global recycling industry has been selling their materials in Pakistan through renters rather than making up local offices in major cities in Pakistan like Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, that will help them. If they set up local offices in Pakistan, that will help them in tapping the increasing demand in the country, that will help them in increasing their sales, their profitability, and that will help them in bringing down their cost. And further, the trust of the buyers here in Pakistan will increase if they would be also easy for them to resolve any dispute if there is any. So we think that the local recycling industry should make up local offices in Pakistan to better tap this industry. Local recycling industry also has a rich potential with the new players uh, that can equip this industry with better technology and use the vertical recycling model to raise multiple stages is involved in procuring direct material from the generation sites, processing it at its yard, and directly delivering it to the steel mills. That would erase 2 to 3 stages involved, uh, and further would bring down the time involved in the supply chain process, increase the profitability and sales, and help them in tapping this market. So the local recycling industry has the potential for the new players and entrants that can equip it with proper technology and methodology. In the last, the conclusion what we have for is that Pakistan has been there is an increase of demand for the global recycling material in Pakistan. What we have seen in the last 1 decade, a five-time increase in crude steel production that was majorly done through the global recycled material. Further, if there is increase in long steel production due to per capita steel consumption increase in Pakistan, or population growth, or an increase in cement sector here in Pakistan, housing sector, development sector. Further, there is a gap in the flat steel sector where there is no crude steel production in the flat steel sector. If there is a new entrant in the market in the coming 5 years, then there's a room in the flat steel production to increase the crude steel production by 4 million metric tons. So there's a rich potential for the Pakistan in the next 5 to 10 years to double its production capacities. The continuous increase in production of steel and import will result in the import of recycled scrap material. And now what we think is more international companies are now interested in Pakistan market, which were previously were either non-existent, in services and steel plant manufacturers in Pakistan. More and more international companies are now coming up, and also there's a opportunity for the new scrap suppliers into the industry, into the steel industry of Pakistan, that can tap this market by giving better pricing and supplies. And we would also like to say that we would be available for any global company that would be interested in coming to Pakistan and like to study and see what potential this country has for the recycling industry. We would be there and we would help them if they want to study and see what the potential there is uh, for the global recycling industry in Pakistan. In the last, I would like to again thank Mr. Chris for giving us this opportunity. We are really honored, and we would like to say Trade Fox is doing a tremendous work, and we wish them good luck. And in the last, if there is a question, you please may ask. We are open for question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Zain. Another very informative presentation. I absolutely appreciate it. Zain, are you, I think you're still on here, right? If you can pop on. I'm going to also make you co-host for a moment here, or pin you to the top.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Hello, Zain. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
I was telling before, well, while we were waiting on you to join earlier, I was informing everyone that you're the first person I spoke with this morning at 4 a.m.
Yes, it was very good. Second in the morning as well.
We had a great informative talk. In fact, I even have I have a lot of notes from our previous conversation. Abhay, let me see here. Let me mute Abhay. I think his mic is coming on and off there. Okay, I have a couple questions, but first of all, let me say, everyone, please, there's a lot of information here to unpack. Please get ready with your questions. I'm just going to jump in and I have a couple questions written down. Either pop your questions in the chat or just go ahead and pop on. In fact, Abhay, I see that you're on, and I think if you'd like
Yeah.
to start, I'll let you take it first, and I'll put my questions in next. So go right ahead, sir.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, sir. How
Hello.
are you? Sorry
Yeah,
for.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Oh, I have a question. It's like the Pakistan is still a scrap market. Whether it is driven by Turkey market or India market. Normally, what I see India market is driven by Turkey market. So what is the situation in Pakistan? Sometime I see Pakistan market is much better than, irrespective of whatever, better than Turkey and better than India in terms of imports.
Mm.
And sometime Turkey has got, higher price than India or Pakistan. So it is fluctuating. So how do you feel like, what's the driven uh, reason for the pricing?
Uh, First of all, thank you, sir, for your question. Uh, the Pakistan market, sir, is basically driven by two major factors. One is the local demand in the local market, and your question has basically two aspects. One, how the rates are being determined, and secondly,
Yeah.
what markets we are following. Basically, for the scrap market, what the people usually currently are observing is the Turkish market. We are observing how their prices are going up and down. More because we feel in the recent past week, what we have been seeing, the price of the Turkish market was slowing down, and the prices here in the Pakistan market were also slowing down. But recently, from the last couple of days, the prices in the Turkish market had started to move upward for the scrap, and this is the trend what we are expecting here in Pakistan, that the prices will also move up. The price has been increasing here, but in proportion to Turkish market, it is bit. You can say it's a bit low, but we are expecting the prices to move up. And for the rate factors, the local market currently is the driving force. When the sales are up for the rebars and other sector, the steel mills are more interested in making the bookings. But currently, what we are seeing, last 3 months were very good in the rebar sales. But for the last 1 week, there has been a drop in the rebar sales, and that is particularly due to the ever increasing prices in the rebar. The local consumer is a bit confused, because if we talk about in January, the rebar was costing about 1,10,000 rupees Pakistani, and now it is costing around 1,78,000. So there's more than So there's a more than 50% increase in the rebar prices in just 10 months. So now the local buyer is expecting that the price will a bit stop. So that's why the sale has been a bit stagnant in this current week. And currently in this week, we haven't seen much booking from the Pakistani side.
What I've seen, shredded is always there in demand in Pakistan, more than the HMS 1 and 2 or LMS bundles. A bundles or B bundles. Shredded material has more demand. So right now, what I've heard few days back, like the pricing in Pakistan is $5 500, $555 CNF Karachi or Port Qasim. Whereas if I compare to India, it is like $530, $40.
So currently, the steel mills in Pakistan are more interested in buying shredded, because when you are importing HMS, there's some problem on the port. You get custom duties and other additional duties. If there be some rebar pieces or garter pieces, that is why the steel mills are more interested in importing shredded.
Shredded material, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can say that about 70% of the material, scrap material imported in Pakistan is shredded, and the rest is majority HMS and LMS. And if we talk about shredded, the most is coming from Europe and USA. And if we talk about HMS, the most is coming from the Dubai market. And the difference you're talking about, the Pakistani and the Indian market, what we have been studying and since the last 7-8 years. The difference is usually due to the freight cost, but it was previously $5 to $10, but now what you're telling is about $20. So the freight has to do with this. And I was talking with my friends on daily basis in Dubai, and I was told that the mills in the India are paying price like 510 and 505 for the HMS. So we won't be able to sell anything to Pakistan below 525. So so it's basically the costing of the shipment, because I think the Bombay is a bigger port than Karachi. That is why the shipping lines are charging.
They did freight from Dubai to Nhava Sheva.
Yes. So the difference is usually due to the freight.
Particularly from us, like Middle East, yeah.
Yes.
But if you talk about the other reason, it is like sometimes Port Qasim is much better freight than the Indian port, yeah. Sometimes.
But what we have observed that even the European suppliers are charging premium to the Pakistan. Indian market, you are right, is the prices quoted to them are usually a bit lower than Pakistan market. You have pointed it right, very right.
Whether from Yemen also it is being imported?
So Pakistani, some mills have been importing from Yemen, but in very limited quantities, LMS bundle, because from Middle East, majority is being done from Dubai.
Okay, I got you. Because I do a lot of trading from Yemen as well, yeah.
Few mills are doing here in Pakistan, but from Yemen, mostly it is LMS bundle.
Okay. So great. Yeah. So great talking, Zain. We'll catch up later. Let Chris have you some questions with you.
Thank you, sir. So nice of you.
So nice of you, sir. Okay. We'll catch up later.
Thank you, sir.
Said, I see you have your hand up. Let me just go ahead and hop in here, just so you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Mr. Zain, you had a really very good presentation. I have one question. Like you might be aware that India and China, we are facing a power crisis, which is why, like, the production is impacting. So how you anticipate the scrap prices in Pakistan will go, amid this power shortage thing? So is it impacting the Pakistani market as well? Or you guys are okay with that? I mean, as compared to India and China. Speaking today, I mean, we have seen a surge of almost $5 to $10 in shredded Nhava Sheva offers. It is actually hovering at 540, which was 530 last week. So it would be great, to hear from you on this thing.
Thank you, sir. So nice of you for raising a question. It's a very important question. And last week, when this topic came up, the surge in the coal prices in the China and Indian market, we were also here very need to understand and to study in depth what it would impact the Pakistani market. So first of all, I would like to clear it to you that the coal prices directly isn't impacting the prices there in Pakistan, because most of the electricity being generated in Pakistan is either through hydro projects or through furnace oil or LPG gas. So we only have one coal plant here in Pakistan. So the electricity price isn't impacted directly due to coal, but due to the increase in gas prices due to the coal prices, there is a little bit impact. But what prices are impacting us? That is ferroalloys. Ferroalloys are being produced by mainly India and China because their prices have increased due to electricity and other hurdles they are facing. So in the last 10 days, the prices of silicon manganese, that has increased almost by 40% here in Pakistan. And the ferrosilicon has also increased more than 40% in the last 10 days. This is the impact that the industry has seen. And your point regarding the shredded prices, it's my personal view. In my view, it's not the prices of shredded increasing is not due to the coal prices, but it's a different phenomena. It's a phenomena due to China decreasing its production, right, and other competitors now entering the market like Turkey. as China was more dependent upon the iron ore, and now Turkey is more dependent upon the shredded. So we are expecting that the price of the scrap would go up, and it's due to China reducing its production, or it will be a bit limited material available from China.
Thank you, Mr. Zain.
Thank you. And I would like to know which company you are representing, or from where you are from.
I work with Kalanish Commodities.
Okay.
And I'm based in India, city called Raipur.
Okay. So main concern is import-export for scrap materials?
No, actually, we are a media house. We basically cover all the market information pertaining to iron ore, scrap, like, semis and finished products, everything from scratch to land.
Okay, nice to be in contact with you. You can be in contact with me. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks so much. Any other questions, please? We have about 5 more minutes before we have a break. Zain, I have a question for you. I noticed in your slide you stated that we need a proper scrap exchange, and I wanted to know what that looks like to you. What would that look like exactly? How do you describe that?
Yes. First of all, sorry for that. When I was presenting there was a volume problem. I understand a lot of points was not won't be transferred to you properly. I was talking about like what we see in the London market. In the UK, we have a London Metal Exchange. So what I see here in the Asian side in Pakistan, we don't have a metal exchange here, and the investors and the traders are not well educated for this. We have seen that the Chinese metal exchange like DOSI and other markets are a very good indicator how the market is moving up. The people have well in advance, they know about where the metal is going. We have good review from the London Metal Exchange. We need to have a metal exchange here in Pakistan as well, so that the local scrap yards and traders can understand how the market is moving up. And I think so it would help the industry, recycling, local industry to perform better.
Okay, and so is that then like in one idea when you talk about an exchange, I think about like the LME where people are trading contracts, there's futures, derivatives, et cetera, for hedging, and then another way I think about a physical market, which there for example in Mandi Gobingar, there is a physical market where you could sell your scrap any day of the week, but then you bring it in by the truck. It sounds like you described a little of both, but I would imagine you have you already have the physical markets, and you're describing really the financial market, basically, correct?
But during my session, I has pointed out that the physical market is there, but the problem is that the physical market is conventional market. It's labor intensive, and nothing is modernized. Everything is done through labor. So there is need to develop shredding plants and bunding machines so that we can modernize it. And the problem is that currently we have 5 stages involved, from picking up to delivering to the steel mills. That can be reduced to 3 stages or 2 stages, and that can increase the profitability if we can see new entrants in the market with better approach for the vertical recycling. What we were discussing in the morning session, that a takeover of the FPT, that was being discussed in the morning session, that the vertical model is needed in the industry in Pakistan as well.
Okay, very good, understood. Are there any other questions? If so, please jump in and ask, or drop them in the chat. I'll just make a small announcement here while waiting, see if anybody else has any questions. We're coming up on our last, not our last. We have 2 more one-on-one sessions coming up. The next one is in 17 minutes, so half past the hour. So if you need to, if you're going to be in the one-on-one session, I'll put the link just now in the chat, and you would follow that link to leave this session, and go back to the conference page, and from there you can enter either a roundtable session later or the one-on-one sessions. During this one-on-one time session, which comes again in about 17 minutes, Denise is going to speak about the capital recovery team that we have at TradeFox, which is a product that we've set up to help companies recover funds that they've lost. It's quite successful, so she's going to talk about that a little bit. And at the top of the hour, we have our final keynote, which is by Peter Thomas. It's entitled "Massive Shortages of Platinum and Palladium Are Coming Our Way." That is here in this keynote room. So if you want to see that keynote, you can, and you're not going to one-on-ones, you can just hang out right here. There's a really interesting roundtable discussion, more of a workshop and a presentation by Ben Thompson from Incodocs. Incodocs is one of our sponsors this year, and they have a really great product for which assists with digitizing your contracts and your documentation, export documentation. So if you want to catch that starts at the top of the hour. And again, that's Ben Thompson of Incodocs. All right, do we have, let's see, do we have any other questions? Let's see, I do see one here. It says, Zain, could you please share the role of Gadani shipbreaking in Pakistan steel production? Very good question.
Yes, it's a very good and good question, interesting question. Gadani basically is a shipbreaking yard here in Pakistan in Balochistan province, about 40-50 kilometers away from Karachi. The Gadani shipbreaking yard is basically providing material majorly to the Karachi market and some to the Lahore market as well. The scrap is being generated from this, is being sold to the recycling industry, steel industry here in Lahore. The prices of the scrap generated from the Gadani shipbreaking is a bit higher than the rest of the local recycling industry because the quality is better. And we also get a sales tax receipt for every scrap produced from Gadani because it's an imported and it's been dismantled here. So the steel mills that have a shortage of sales tax invoices, they are also buying this material. And the ship plates are being used by the local mills here to make up the local rebar that is inferior in quality to the graded material. Basically, we can say it doesn't. The ship plate provided from this is basically gone to the local steel mills that are producing inferior rebars from this ship plates, and the scrap generated is being given to the graded steel mills and is a premium quality scrap at better rates.
Had it on mute there. Zain, thanks a lot. Okay, I don't see any other questions, but this is, like I said, you're a wealth of information. I really appreciate all of this knowledge that you're sharing with us.
Thank you,
I have a question, Chris.
Oh, please go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Zain. Thanks a lot for your invitation. Would have loved to see you live. Here we go. We have you here. I'm interested actually to know about the environmental ministry in Pakistan in terms of imposing more strict regulations on the steel industry for the flue gas filtering system, which is installed to collect all the dust that comes out from the induction or electric arc furnace. The reason why I'm asking that question is that we are actively interested in the zinc extraction from the induction furnace dust or electric arc furnace dust. And we see a potential in Pakistan as a market for installing such technology, especially as you described. There's a potential growth in the scrap imports and therefore scrap consumption, which means that more dust is going to be generated. But if that dust is going to be going to the air, then there's not much use for that type of industry. So what would you say from your experience about that?
Sir, I couldn't hear you properly. You are talking about pollution being generated, or what point you are raising?
Right. Well, what I'm saying actually is that all steel industries during the melting of their scrap in the furnace, there is dust that is generated. Some plants, from my experience, I know in Pakistan, not all of them, they have a filter system that takes out all this dust.
Sorry, now I
and
got your
then,
point. Yes. The point you raised, it's very important for the steel industry for the last 2 years. This thing was missing from the industry. But from last 2 years, there has been a very strict regulation regarding the pollution here in Pakistan, because we have been observing smog season in October and November. So the government has been very strict on this. And they also sealed some plants, small plants in Gujranwala and Lahore region previously in last year, and also a year ahead back. And this year we also had news that 2 or 3 smaller plants were sealed. So more and more plants are now interested in this type of technology that reduces the smoke that is being generating during the melting process, what I understand from yourself. So and now it's a requirement for the plants to basically install these kind of machinery on their mills, and inspections are done during October and November smog season that is currently being started. The Pollution Environment Control Department will visit the steel mills, almost all the steel mills, and will see if these plants are installed there or not. And if anyone is creating pollution, it would be sealed till he installs the plant to decrease the pollution. So this is the need of our in the current scenario. That was not 2 years back, but currently it's being an issue in Pakistan.
That's great. Just 2 numbers I may have missed. The total scrap, not imports, but consumption, whether import locally in Pakistan right now, and in 5 years projection. If you have just quick these 2 numbers.
The import consumption of Pakistan? Steel consumption?
Yeah.
Scrap?
Yes. Whether import and local. I mean, the 2 numbers.
Okay. Sorry again for that. This was all in the session, but the volume was very disturbing. I'm very sorry for that. The total capacity of the Pakistan steel industry is about 9 million metric tons, out of which 5 million metric ton is being produced locally, crude steel, for the long steel industry. That means that we are producing 5 million metric ton locally, approximately. And we are importing approximately 5 million metric tons of scrap. Around 90% of the scrap is being imported to generate the crude steel. So we are heavily dependent upon the import of recycled scrap for the local steel industry here in Pakistan. And when we are talking about that the Pakistan steel industry has in the last 1 decade increased its crude steel production by 5 times, from 1 million to 5 million metric tons, and it is expected to increase into double by next decade.
Okay.
And the basis of it is that we have very low per capita consumption in the region as well compared to the globe. And second reason is our population of 220 million. Third reason is the CPAC. The fourth reason is the infrastructure and development phase that we have been examining. And the last phase is that currently we are importing 4 million metric ton of flat steel in finished form, that we are expecting that in the 5 or 7 years there might be a player coming in, and that would also increase the crude steel production. So in my opinion, at least Pakistan crude steel production will increase by double in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
And isn't it suck?